Hey there, welcome back to the Behavior Coach Podcast. Today's episode is a little bit different. I have a guest joining me today, and we are talking about something that I think about constantly in my work and in my own home: movement. My guest is Fayth Caruso. Fayth has spent 15 plus years working with rebounding as a tool for the body with individuals of all ages and abilities, including a lot of neurodivergent kids and adults. She currently works with Bellicon Rebounders, which is the rebounder I have in my own living room, the one my kids use every single day for hours at a time. A quick note on disclosure before I get started: this is not a paid or sponsored episode. I want to be transparent that I have been gifted a Bellicon through a social media collaboration in the past, but I genuinely love and use this product at home and in my coaching work with neurodivergent families. There is an affiliate link in the show notes if you want to check them out. But this conversation is completely editorial. I was not paid to have her on. The focus is just exposure to this sensory movement tool, because my goal here is always education and supporting neurodivergent kids and adults. Let's get into it. Hey there, welcome to the Behavior Coach Podcast. I am Erica Nielsen Mahoney, an ADHD coach, educator, and doctoral student. I help families understand the nervous systems behind the behavior, and I'm also raising 2 neurodivergent kids of my own. So the things we talk about here come from research, from my professional work with families, and from real life inside a neurodivergent home. This podcast is the audio version of the work I have been doing for years through writing, coaching, and teaching, turned into conversations you can take with you, because sometimes you don't need another article. You just need something thoughtful in your ears while you're driving, walking the dog, or folding the never-ending laundry. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to the Behavior Coach Podcast. We are here with Fayth today, and we are going to be talking about movement. Let's start with a little bit of an introduction. Can you tell us who you are and a bit about your work?
Thanks, Erica. I'm so excited to be here. So I'm Fayth Caruso. My work for the past 15 years has been around rebounding, this lovely little trampoline behind me, all things rebounding and kind of the benefits that go into it, and working with a variety of populations from children to adults. And right now I work with Bellicon Rebounders. I kind of fell into them by accident. So I'll give you that jump off point, Erica.
That's amazing. And we love Bellicon Rebounders, my kids, and I'm trying to get on it myself, but my kids jump on it every single day for multiple hours a day, my little one. Absolutely.
Mine too.
It's quite an amazing tool. Let's start with, what drew you to movement as a tool for the body, and specifically rebounding as well?
Yeah. So I started out as a professional dancer. So I was a dancer my whole life.
Amazing.
I danced like New York, Lincoln Center, all over. And I started teaching Pilates on the side because I was getting a lot of injuries. And so I fell into the Pilates world because I loved posture and biomechanics and, how I could heal my own injuries essentially, or prevent them. And I was working at a Pilates studio in New York City, and they had rebounders. And at the time they were these spring,
so cool.
These little spring rebounders, and they would squeak horrible sound. But I also was a competitive swimmer, and they said, hey, you might love this because it's like swimming. It's low impact. It frees up the joints. It's so fun. You should try teaching these classes. So I did the certification. This is almost 20 years ago. I started teaching the classes and just fell in love with it. And I would get a lot of older clients that come off of Wall Street in New York. We'd also get Broadway dancers and a whole range of people. And to see their improvement and their benefits was huge. So that's kind of how I fell into it.
That kind of leads me to my next question: is what I was thinking when I started working with rebounders in my own family is, often we think of trampolines as just this fun tool, or maybe just for cardio. But what does research actually say about what rebounding does for the nervous system? Because that is the rabbit hole that I went down before we brought one into our.
I transitioned to the bungees many years later by accident. I had a Pilates studio in Chicago, and Bellicon just happened to open a warehouse close by. And a friend of mine said, you've got to try these bungees instead of springs. And I was like, I don't know. But I tried it. And that's when I could feel the difference in my nervous system and in my body.
Okay.
So that kind of was an integral switch, is working specifically with bungees. They're more malleable. So you've got this malleable surface. You've got this feedback for buoyancy that you need for that. So you've got the low impact nature. And then in terms of the nervous system, it's so gentle, but still gives you enough of that upward push to get the gravitational force to lift you. So it's a beautiful way to calm the nervous system. It's the repetitive motion. It's the vibration. It's the gravitational force. It's the feedback for your proprioceptive system, your coordination, your vestibular systems. It's just this beautiful thing that comes together and is very soothing. And we started to look into that a lot in Chicago, at the University of Chicago, actually, and working more with people who needed that feedback.
And if anyone who's listening and hasn't heard the terms proprioception or vestibular input, I have a podcast on sensory a couple weeks ago that I talk a bit about this, but let's talk about that now. Can you tell me what proprioception and vestibular input, what do these terms mean?
I always tell people it's the things that you don't realize are really important until they go. It's like all the stuff we take for granted. Proprioceptive would be like an example. My arm is out to the side. I know it's there without seeing it. I don't have to look at my arm to know that it's out there. So it's that awareness of the body in space. And vestibular system is very important when it comes to balance. And, as we age, people start to fall a lot and they don't realize the importance of the vestibular system. And that's very, very important. We automatically fire those systems when we rebound because of the malleable surface of the mat and the bungees. We'll get athletes come in who have had a lot of concussions, hockey players, and they'll come here because their neurologist sent them so they can rehab their brain and help them get back on the ice. So they're all systems that are put in place that I think when they start to not act according to plan, we realize it, and then we take it for granted throughout the day that they're healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And something we see in my space with neurodivergent kids is we see a lot of proprioception and vestibular seeking. So I think of proprioception and vestibular systems it's sort of like our extra senses. So proprioception, if you have a kid who is pushing and pulling against resistance, they are seeking that input for regulation. Yeah. Some kids like to avoid those inputs and some kids like to seek them. And so for parents that are listening and they're like, oh, that sounds like my kid, then having movement tools in the home can be such a beautiful way to support.
Yes. Yeah. I have a child with those needs as well. So we have this just set up in the corner and it's available all day to just get on without any support. And it's just there and she will bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce and bounce.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's what my daughter does as well. I teach a homeschool science class with 12 kids. And they love my living room because I have a rebounder set up. I have a wobble board set up. I have one of those skateboards it's like on a little round thing. So they work on balancing. It's quite funny. They all kind of pile in and they're all on movement tools and we're all moving and we're talking about science and it's great. But so often it is just getting these things out there.
Feel regulated and then she can move forward with the next task.
Yeah,
we need that feedback, in order to get to that place. Yeah.
Well, and what have you noticed in your work specifically about neurodivergent kids and adults and how they respond to rebounding?
We've worked with occupational therapists all over the world, large institutions, clinics. I've gotten to work with a lot of children and also a lot of adults with neurodivergent needs. And what I notice is that they are able to regulate emotional regulation and also physical regulation. They have this feedback where I can see that sense of regulation. So that's really beautiful. And then I also notice extreme sense of purpose and joy. It's just something that I think you can't replicate. I can see them going from that dysregulated place into that regulated place physically where they can perform tasks more focused. And that improvement in balance and coordination and proprioceptive abilities, all of those things.
One thing that I always love to ask about is because we often talk about these movement tools and how they can support regulation, but sometimes they can make things worse if we don't have sort of the supports and the right tools and a plan. Can you tell me a bit about why a movement tool or adding movement to an overstimulated, dysregulated child, how can sometimes it make things worse?
Yeah, that's a good question. It depends on how prepared the environment is, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So if the environment is prepared in a very chaotic way, I think that can add to that overwhelmed sense. I don't have on screens or too much external stimulus when we present it. So that environment is very prepared for them to enter. And so it's like an invitation, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's an invitation to say, this is how we use the equipment. So I think that's important. I think also just demonstrating myself. So before I usually put any child or adult, neurodivergent or not, on here specifically, I will demonstrate its proper usage so that they have a real sense of respect for the tool. They see how to safely get on and off, and they really respect those directions. I have not had one child or adult not follow the protocol there when it's properly presented. So that's beautiful. The prepared environment is huge, but it's very clear with that invitation of how to walk into the space and how to use it. So they feel centered.
And I really hit on something here. I always, when I'm teaching parents about regulation and introducing regulation tools, we never, ever, ever want to introduce a regulation tool when a child is dysregulated.
Yes.
We practice them when we're calm. And I think that's the key with any support tool, is exactly what you're talking about. We have the environment's familiar, the protocol, how to use the tool is all familiar when they're calm, because when we're dysregulated, we don't have access to our thinking brain. No. So this is not the moment to ever sort of teach or introduce. And so I think that's a big key. And then the other key I always like to share is just know your kids, because, and if you're concerned, if you're introducing tools and your kid is overstimulating, this is where having an expert help, like an occupational therapist, if you have some tools in your home, never be afraid of just getting that extra assistance to work with your child and help you figure out how to use these tools in a way that's actually supportive. Because I know kids can be so different. I have 2 neurodivergent kids. They both interact with movement differently. Yeah. I have one that very much regulates through movement. And then I have the other regulates through containment, which is more of a like nest. Yes. But her baseline regulation is so much better if she is regularly moving. So she needs to move through the day when she's regulated to stay regulated, but movement when dysregulated doesn't work.
Yes. I almost like to think of this as preparing them for the day, kind of sets them up for success. So to your point, it's like if I try to throw this in after we've had a really rough day, like it doesn't always improve, it's like we've hit a point of dysregulation where it's like, okay, but if I use it as a preventative tool, I find sets them up for success, at the beginning of the day to stay more regulated. And we do try to talk about it as when do we use it and not use it. And also, I wouldn't put a dysregulated child for sure in a rebounder. The preventative kind of side is really, really good.
Absolutely. So there's a window where you can introduce movement when a child's dysregulating, but it's like when they're at that like 5 or 6 out of 10, not the 10 out of 10. It is like you can see things are going,
you can see it,
and then you can offer the invitation, like you suggested. It's really kind of thinking about the main piece is just having our kids familiar with what regulation tools are available to them in their home and going from there. Now, as we're talking about parents here, if a parent is just starting to think about movement as a regulation tool, where do you suggest they begin?
So there's 2 types of movement that I love that I find work with my kids and have really been successful. I think outdoor regulation movement is
100%.
Nature. You just can't argue that as being like an ultimate immediate win. So like if we're setting up for success, like getting outside and doing something in nature is huge. You can start at any age. I mean, I have people who have started at 90, but you can also start them as young as 18 months, just standing on there. I always start by example. So the beautiful thing like about this is that I can use it too. So like I will get on and demonstrate like a very small vibrating bounce, showing in my body calmness. Like I'm not going to step on here and do flips and go crazy and do all this. I mean, they can as a kid, but if they see a calm moving body on it, like they usually will lead by examples. And then step back and see, what do they do? What's the invitation for them? 99% of the time they will replicate like what they've seen me do. And then of course days they'll get really creative and take it in on their own. But those have been our 2 go-to, have been outdoor immediately and then rebounding. We have it set up in the corner, kind of between 2 walls like this. So the rebounder is just in the center, and then starting with that very gentle feedback, seeing what the child does there and getting them to trust their bodies. I'll most of the time see that their bodies will adjust posturally, balance wise, and they'll alter their movement until they find where they need to be.
Absolutely. Are there any common mistakes that you see parents or families make when they're trying to use movement as a regulation tool in their homes?
I think movement in general, every kid is so unique. So the biggest mistake is like not to assume something that works for one kid is going to work for the next.
Yes.
So trying to, understand your child and get them to understand what works best for them. With rebounding in specifics, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what rebounding is. There's sort of an image of people going really high and bouncing around and it being like a liability. And it's not that if you get the proper bungee strength, which will give a good balance of support and buoyancy for the body using it. You'll also see like the little Tykes or Fisher-Price brand.
Yes, I was going to ask you about those.
Yes, they have the handle, and no judgment. If you are a family that has that, like keep bouncing. Like I'm happy any movement that works for your family, but I have seen that it tends to encourage their body to move forward and lean forward. And what we're going for is that balance and coordination and proprioception. In order to really get those benefits, you have to trust that the body is going to figure it out without the bar. And so having a little trust in your child and knowing that with you close by, they're going to start to do a health bounce, which is just a small bounce, and that they're not going to go too wild on it, that trusting their body and that they're going to be safe. It's really a beautiful thing when you start to see that develop and that confidence develop, that they don't need that bar. Unless there's somebody who, really has a balance issue that is severe. I usually don't recommend it. I recommend that that you trust them and give it a try because it really works. Yeah.
And I can attest to that because I actually had my daughter bouncing with a bar until I talked to you when I first got my trampoline. I met with you. And you told me this, and I pulled it away. And do you know what she did? She was doing that thing where she was holding it and she was doing like leaned on like donkey kick type moves. Oh, yes. And
it's the opposite of what we want. We want to develop trust in the body, trust in the nervous system, trust in the body. We want that full feedback. And the bar it's kind of like saying like you need training, putting training wheels on a bike when they may not need.
But my little one actually does much better with it. And I've noticed that she's more creative in how she bounces, and she is safe as can be on there.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Even when she's trying to. Yeah.
For adults, it's okay. Yeah. Especially if aging bodies who need, or injured bodies, but there is an attachment cushion that can go around the frame that covers the steels.
Okay.
If you're very worried, you can get that. And the fact that it's just in our home, like I don't have to kick them outside to the backyard to use it. I mean, I can bring it outside, but it's just always available to them, and they know that they can get on that. And sometimes I'll see them like they need that feedback, and I'll just turn around and they're bouncing. Oh, that's great. Yeah. They figured it out.
We had a backyard trampoline for a while there, and it did not get used nearly as much as the indoor rebounder. I know, at least with my kids who do both navigate ADHD, that any barrier between them and their tools is a problem. Like, we need our tools out. It's maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing design choice for my living room to have a trampoline and a wobble board and a skateboard.
Mine too. It's there.
But my kids are regulated. And you know what? If they have tools to move on, they are not doing parkour on my couch.
Correct.
Which is what was happening previously.
That's exactly right. I can see instead of bouncing on the couch, bouncing the Bellicon, and there they go. Or they'll bounce, Bellicon to the couch, which I don't encourage, but they do it anyways. But it's a beautiful thing to have. And I mean, I've got one in my living room that's got beige bungees, and it does blend in, which is kind of nice. It's like a little more aesthetically pleasing, but it's been life-changing. I cannot picture my kids without it at this point to get through their day. That's how important it's become for them, just from an emotional standpoint. And also for me, I use it first thing in the morning. And the lymphatic benefits too, they are moving the lymphatic system, which is the system in our body that detoxifies and cleans. Like, I have seen a reduction, like if they're coming on with a cold, like a healthier immune system when they do bounce. And so that's been a really beautiful thing too, is just knowing that they get that lymphatic benefit and, less inflammation in the body. So anything I can do to hold off more illness in the house is a beautiful thing.
Well, and we've been talking here about just how great rebounders are because obviously we both love them. But for families who can't invest in like a full setup right now, are there accessible alternatives that give some of these same benefits that families can get moving in their homes?
There's a few different ways that you can make it accessible into your home. So you can get like the smallest size, which absolutely holds benefits. And that's how I started rebounding long before I worked for Bellicon. I had a smaller size one. And so that's a really great option. There's also certain insurance plans that will cover it, which is really nice to know that can get covered within your home. If you invest in it, it's something for you too. It's not just for one stage of life, but something that all of the adults can have and grow into and become a longevity tool. So I tell people, like, instead of getting like this many toys, like start to think of it as like a family outing
tool.
I dance, so I have taught all of my children the movements that I do on the rebounder, also off the rebounder. So I teach dance. I find that the working with rhythm and working with dance movement is hugely beneficial to helping with focus and to helping with just needing that outlet and that regulation. Dance can be a beautiful thing. So I do find movement in that way, rhythmic dancing, like cardio dancing, really, really helpful. And then I'll have them take it onto the rebounder and get that extra oomph. But those are my go-to ones in my house. And my secret weapon, if all else fails, is getting into nature. I feel like it works for me.
Absolutely. It's just get out there.
95% of the time.
Yeah. One more sort of question before we kind of get to our close here is, if you have a tool like a rebounder in your home and your kids are reluctant to actually use it, what tips do you have for making it a part of your daily rhythm?
I hate to break it to you.
Yeah.
They take it from me the minute I get on. So you lead by example. It's just like any exercise routine. Like you want to model. It's so hard being a mom. It's so hard finding the time. But when you start to think of like, I'm going to take the 10 minutes to bounce for myself, I'm modeling it for my child. Like they will take those responses into adulthood and they will do the same. And it just starts so young with them watching you. So I will get on it every morning for 3 minutes. And I have to tell them sometimes, like, I'm bouncing for 3 minutes and I set a timer. I think they just watch me doing it and then they want to copy it. The second thing is music. I would say music is a really great driving force. I do have like playlists that I'll sometimes put on and they just have a blast, with music. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And if you have a child, you have movement tools, they're not using them, that is also the place where working with an occupational therapist to help your kids, get on it and teach them themselves too. But if you don't know what to do, this is where like these support providers are specifically trained in sensory diets and figuring out what your child needs to meet their sensory needs. And so doing it, learning it with someone who knows exactly what they're doing does make a huge difference. And I know even for me, I did the one session with you when I first got my trampoline.
Yes.
I learned about holding my posture.
Yes.
And I swear the first time I jumped on it, I felt like I had whiplash. And then after I met with you and I learned how to hold my posture and what movements to start with, I can now jump on it successfully. And Bellicon has great resources. If you're a mom and you're like, there's no way I can jump on a trampoline with my pelvic floor, we can talk that. There are so many tools. Yeah, that is another podcast. And I know that Bellicon has materials on this if you go to their page, correct? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So we have an online video portal and there's like 1,000+ workouts. We've got the pelvic floor series and, there's been physical therapists on team to analyze these programs.
Awesome.
So we've got the pelvic floor series. We've got different cognitive series, lymphatic, detoxes, balance, anything you can want, even osteoporosis. But finding support. We love occupational therapists. We have more and more occupational therapists using rebounders now and getting that support. We've got people all over the country like yourself, Erica, like who we know are using them and can support. So I think having support system is huge. And to your point, it is important that even adults just don't get on and, I'm going to just start to do a big jump or things that you see on the internet. You do want to have some method to it.
Any new movement for your body takes a little time to adjust to, and learning about the posture and all of those pieces can be so supportive. And I know that that is often the biggest concern when I'm talking about these tools with parents and I say, you need to do it too, just like you did. They're like, there's no way. And I'm like, no, there is a way.
Yeah.
And I try to do it myself.
Yeah. 3 minutes a day, I tell people, like, it actually only has to be that much. And I only, most of the time, am bouncing closed chain, which means my feet stay in contact with the mat. So the bungees just do so much of that work. And I do it in the morning. My lymphatic system starts to get moving. And then I do feel just such a sense of calm. I was telling you, we were doing an interview this morning with a trauma therapist, and she was talking about how she's using it for vagus nerve relaxation and deep breathing. So it definitely will calm the nervous system in that way if you start your day off with it. So make it part of your routine.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I will say, you mentioned the bands earlier. If you're a parent listening and you're looking at a rebounder for your family, I really cannot say enough about switching from springs to the rubber bands. Just before we close, can you just tell us a little bit more about the difference between a spring-based rebounder versus the bands?
Yes. Don't believe anything that you hear about springs. I started with springs many years ago. It's I think an outdated thought. I don't like to negatively talk if somebody's like using it at your home and it's working for you. Like, I cheer you on, but try the bungees. They are a different feel with the bounce. You're going to have lower impact. There is a sense of buoyancy that it's kind of, until you've tried it, you don't quite know what it feels like. That is gentle, but also freeing. It's this perfect combination of, it's firm enough that you're not going to go too wild, but buoyant enough that you can get the lymphatic and that sense of feedback that you need. So you're going to have that. It also comes in different strengths. So for different body types, you can customize the bungee strength. So it's really made for the people using it. And we need that for the proprioceptive feedback and all of the balance work and all of the cognitive sensory feedback. And we need that malleable surface. And you just don't get that with the springs. If you step on a spring trampoline, it's pretty firm. And you feel it jarring in your neck, and you just don't get that sense of freedom. So I started on springs. I worked on them for many, many years. And once I went bungee, I couldn't go back.
Well, and that is the other piece too, as someone who has it in their living room, is they're quiet.
Yes.
They do not squeak.
Reminding me that. Yes.
Yeah.
So quiet, which you wouldn't think would make a difference. But if you've got a kid who's using it for an hour a day, it makes a difference.
Makes a difference. And the funny thing is that group of kiddos that comes to my house all the time, they often comment on why is this one so much quieter? Why is this one so much smoother? Thank you for bringing that back up.
That's probably the best benefit now that you mentioned it.
Is this one doesn't make any noise, because kids notice everything. Right when I first got it, there was one little guy who jumped on it. He's like, why is this better than the other trampolines? Like,
no, that makes it different.
It's the bungees.
You wouldn't know it until you hear it all day,
all day long.
You'll lose your mind.
We do not hear. Yeah. Which is a great moment. To wrap up here, if you could leave parents with one shift in how they think about their child's movement, what would it be?
The greatest advice I get about movement is from the clients I have who are in their 90s, which is that movement is life. And so I think that it's such a life-giving force to give your children these environments where they can move. And I think oftentimes we think of it as like a luxury, like, they need to be able to sit all day in school. And it's like, no, actually, they need movement. Movement equals life. And so I think it's not a luxury, it's a real necessity. And so giving your children that is a gift that will serve them for the rest of their life, truly, and also serve you hopefully too in your home.
Yeah. I love that. Before we go, where can people find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing and your work and Bellicon?
Yeah. So I am on the Bellicon website a lot. I'm on the Bellicon Plus, which is our training platform.
Awesome.
I do a lot of the training programs for that. So you can look at Bellicon for all of that inspiration. We're on YouTube as well. If you just want to peek at free videos and free content and see, what it's about before you get it, and just peek and try it out and see how you feel, and work with somebody in your community like work with Erica to to introduce yourself to this new form. I needed somebody. I was a professional dancer, and the first time I got on a rebounder, I felt kind of like I had two left feet, like I couldn't quite, and I always wondered why. I needed that guidance and that like introduction to it. So find that support, and we can be there for you. You can find me at Bellicon. I'm always happy to answer any questions about what you're trying to choose or the best path for you or for your child. Like I can answer anything. Even if it's personal, pelvic floor, throw it out there for me and I'll support you.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming today and chatting with me this morning. I've really appreciated having you here. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If this episode gave you something, a new way to think about what's happening in your home, a moment where you felt a little less alone in this, I would love for you to share it with someone who might need it too. Until next time, take care of yourself. You are doing harder work than most people understand, and you're showing up for it. That matters.